Viola Genevieve Makakoa Galdera Lewis, known by many simply as Lady, was born at Queen's Hospital on July 27, 1931, to Louis Cordero Galdera from Kohala and Mary Pualani Naehu from Laie. She was raised in Kalihiuka Valley and attended Kalihiwaina School, Lady of Peace on Fort Street, and also Royal School, where she began her music and vocal training. She then attended Kamehameha School for Girls, where she was a member of the Glee Club and played volleyball, and she loved it. She often reflected on the humble beginnings of her life with her siblings and her grandmother, Nalia Makakoa Lima, who played a huge role in her growing up.
There were 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. My sister passed away as a baby, and we were raised by my grandparents. And they're from the Makakoa line in the Laie. Grandma was always around. I've always hoped to be a grandma like her. She was a great inspiration to me. Very nurturing, very caring, very concerned.
Lady also had vivid memories of her younger years of helping her mother, who worked as a janitor at Ali'iolani Hale and Iolani Palace.
I was her helper with the trash cans. We lived on Beretania Street, above Wimpy's Bar, and River, Beretania and River. I can remember those hard years because there were times where she had to work and I had to stay home. In those years, especially 1938, I can remember the scariest time of my life. We had a great earthquake on Oahu, and I thought for sure that was the end of my life because the buildings were just shaking. They were all wooden buildings. There was no concrete in those days. So scary, I didn't know what to do. I went under the bed, I went hugging the walls.
A mere 3 years later, Lady, along with thousands of other Hawaii residents, experienced the trauma of Hawaii becoming ground zero at the outbreak of World War II.
And I was 10 years old. I can still remember all the black circles in the sky. We had blackouts. We had to paint our windows black. There were soldiers that walked on Fort Street where Princess Theater was. That's the area we lived. And they walked with rifles. You had to be in the house by 6 o'clock. If you were on the streets and if you didn't halt, when they say halt, they just shot. And they just gathered all the Orientals. And I remember all the candy men. They sold good kind of candies in little packages that we enjoyed. And they just put them all in camps. The war was hard to accept. We had rations. We didn't have all the luxuries we used to have because you couldn't go out after dark. My papa always came home after dark. He worked till late, but we were scared that he'd get shot too.
Lady had her first bouncy baby boy on September 5th, 1946, Kenneth Kouluvehi, whom she loved very much. He went everywhere with her, including her mother's hot dog stand called Pualani's Hamburgers. This is also where she met her husband of 55 years.
My future husband was a merchant seaman, and he would go out on tour during the war. But he stopped one day. There were 4 stools out there on the wagon, and he'd sit there and order a hamburger and talk to me a little while. Before you know it, the Princess Theater people come up. They want shave ice. I was very busy, but he still stuck around. Then he'd come back the next day when he was in. Then I didn't see him for a while when the ship came in. And one day he heard this baby crying. And he said, "What's that?" And I said, "Oh, that's my baby." He said, "You have a baby?" I said, "Yes, I do." He said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, you want to see him?" So I picked him up and showed him my baby. He was shocked. He said, "You sure you're not babysitting?" I said, "No, that's my baby." He said, "You're too young to have a baby." I said, "I know." So he had a nice car because he had lots of money. So my oldest brother, who was out on leave for the holidays, came to the hot dog stand and started talking to me, and who's this guy he sees there all the time. And I introduced him, and he says, "Oh," he said, "you got a nice car." I said, "Yeah." He says, "Can I borrow it?" And he said, "Sure." Loan him the car. So Earl told me, he says, "You got a good date. I can get a car." He lends me his car. I says, "Well, I didn't ask him to. I don't know who he is, but he comes all the time for it. He says he loves the hamburgers, but all the time he was throwing them in Central School. They had all these hedges along the building. I didn't know he was throwing them away. But he confessed a long time later. He'd even order hot dog. He'd eat the hot dog, but not the hamburgers. Well, I didn't make them. My mother's old man made it.
Lady welcomed her second child, Deering, into the world in 1949, followed by Donovan in 1951, Douglas in 1952, Dickie in 1956, and David in 1957.
I had good boys, I tell you. I think the hardest incident I ever had was when my oldest boy and my second boy were playing. They were playing on a bed. It's this hammer thing that you hit. You hit the pegs down to the hole. Well, Donovan wanted a turn, and he was on the bed. Well, Deering didn't like him taking it away, so Deering got the hammer and hit him. And when he hit him, his eye came out. His eye just broke one time. He had a small little place in his eye. Oh, my father-in-law was so upset with him. These boys went into bigger stuff. Basketball, outside, volleyball, they liked that. But they got along, and they always looked forward to their father come home and play with them. And my children were going to church with me every Sunday. They learned to put on their tie. They learned their church clothes, their school clothes, and their home clothes.
Once Oliver Keiki got a little older, Lady returned to work in 1966 at Honolulu Iron Works as an inventory clerk, moving up the ranks from switchboard operator to chief operator at age 35. After the closure of Honolulu Iron Works in 1974, Lady then went to work at Hawaiian Tel as a service clerk, and in 1976 took and passed the test to become a service representative until 1986, retiring after 12 years of service to help care for her grandson Joseph and her ailing mother-in-law.
Daddy and I adopted Joseph. My husband and I adopted him when he was 3 or 4 years old. Joseph, he used to bug Grandma Daisy. He loved to bug this elderly woman, you know, and so Grandpa used to have to always scold him because she's calling him. But if I'm home, she's calling me. Look at this boy, he's running his cars up and down my legs. She's a good man, because he run his cars on his feet, up her leg. And she's saying, "Get away from me, get away," screaming her head off.
After Lady retired, she worked on her genealogy and was awarded a Hawaiian homestead lease in Kapolei in 2008 that she eventually passed on to Joseph and his father Dickie. In 1982, Lady and her brother Earl traveled the world, visiting 7 countries, and this was one of the highlights of her life.
I did go to Europe. I spent 23 days, and I visited 10 countries. The country is beautiful. I was happy I got to see Eiffel Tower. I even went up an elevator on it. Went to the last floor and walked around. Kind of felt dizzy when you look down because everything looks crooked. To me, it looks crooked. Then we went up to the heights and we looked down to Eiffel Tower, and they told us at 7 o'clock all the lights would come on, and sure enough, they all came on. I just cried. It was just like I couldn't believe it. I think that's the highlight of my life, was going that far on a plane.
In 1996, Lady lost her youngest son, David. And in 2004, after 55 years of marriage, she lost her husband. And then, in 2013, she lost her second eldest son, Deering. She credits her faith in the Lord and the fellowship she found in the church for helping her through those tough times. Viola Genevieve Makakoa will be remembered as a loving, caring, and humble lady who truly lived up to her name, Auntie Lady. Her faith in God and love for others will live on through all of those she touched throughout her 86 years here on earth.
Give the blessing. Everything is a blessing that you have. Whether it's sharing whatever you have, think about it. That's our Akua's wish. He taught us to love. He didn't teach us to hate. Love one another. Treat others as you would want to be treated. Learn respect. And pono. Aloha no. Thank you.